Where should people come from?
Like, holy crap, guys. I was not expecting to get this much support from my last devlog. Admittedly, in the first 2 days, I wasn't thinking the video would do that hot. But you guys found a way to prove me wrong by currently being over 1,600 views and the channel now having over 250 subscribers. Seriously, thank you guys so much for the support. Y'all are crazy, I swear. But anyway, for those who haven't seen my last video, I have just finished setting up a pretty solid foundation for Splashdown. At least, more solid than my other projects. So now it's just a matter of adding more stuff on top of the project to make it feel more complete. My goal at the end of the last devlog was to make more weapons so I could give the player as much replayability as possible. And even though I accidentally gave you guys a sneak peek of the weapons, I didn't say what I was planning on adding. So what have I added? Well, so far I made a barrel water gun, a sponge drill, a sniper rifle that's filled with water, a bucket, a bubble, a slingshot, and a water power themed power geyser. Oh, and I also completely overhauled the main menu. Yeah, I've been pretty busy. Okay, so let's slow things down a bit. Some of you may be wondering how I'm able to add all these weapons in the first place. And the answer to that is how I coded the player. This admittedly isn't the first time I added multiple weapons into a game. Those who have been following the channel for a while probably remember that my last project had 3 unique weapons. However, since it was originally a game jam project and wasn't supposed to expand the way it did, I had to rebuild some systems and Frankenstein it together. I mean, it worked at the end of the day, but since this project is made from scratch and is designed to be modular, I can use a few tricks to help make this process a little easier. And by that, I started using arrays. If you're not a programmer and don't know what arrays are, think of it like a suitcase. A suitcase can store a wide variety of things. Most people have suitcases filled with their shirts, their pants, or even their shoes. Now imagine that, but to store data like integers and strings. Is that a good analogy? I genuinely don't know. Anyway, thanks to arrays, I'm able to store various things about each player, like what weapons they use, what team they're on, etc. And since whatever weapon the player has is always stored in the same array location, adding a new weapon is as simple as changing a number. I would love to talk more about this, but I feel like if I go into arrays any deeper, this is just going to end up being an Acro products tutorial. Anyway, the first weapon I made was simple to say the least. It was mostly made just to be used as a proof of concept, rather than an actual weapon in the game. So I just completely scrapped it for the first real weapon in the game, the classic splasher. Under the hood, it's almost exactly the same as the original water gun I had, with the exception of there being significantly less knockback when shooting. Admittedly, there's not that much else to say about the classic splasher, so let's talk about the drill. The sponge drill is a super fast weapon that launches you forwards rather than backwards. It doesn't have a projectile like the other weapons I'm going to be making, and it acts more like a sword rather than an actual gun. But that doesn't mean it's a bad weapon at all. It is surprisingly really good. Funny story, when I was working on the game, I originally thought the splasher was so much better than the drill, since the drill was a close range weapon. And I thought this for a long time, until a friend came over one day and wanted to try out my game. It was definitely a great experience for me since it was the first real game test I've ever done. But man, was the drill broken. You were so fast when using the drill and the hitbox was so busted that I ironically ended up nerfing the drill and buffing the splasher. It's funny to talk about now, but this experience definitely gave me some perspective on how I won't ever really know how good a weapon is until I actually get people to sit down and play. I'm positive when I release the game, there's going to be a lot of balancing changes, but that's honestly the reality of one person making a multiplayer game. Moving along, we have the Liquid Snipe. Don't ask why I call it that, I just thought it sounded cool. This is pretty much a sniper rifle with water. This weapon has a lot of knockback, and it has the downside of being pretty slow compared to the other weapons. But if you're not a big fan of the Liquid Snipe speed, don't worry because there's this super cool tech that is totally not a glitch. If you've already shot the weapon and jumped a few frames after landing, you'll be able to keep some of your backwards momentum. Originally you kept all your momentum and could do it infinitely, but I ended up tweaking it so you still lose momentum over time, so it actually looked like it was part of the game and not some glitch that I just kept in because I thought it looked cool. Because remember, it's not a glitch if the developer knows about it. Oh, here's another fun one I made, the bucket. Movement wise, it's even slower than the Liquid Snipe. However, it makes up for that by having deceptively good range. Not only does the bucket pour out 3 droplets of water, but it also shoots out in an arc rather than a straight line. Getting the projectile to rotate like this was a bit tricky to figure out, But after watching a Godot tutorial on how to make arrows of all things, I was able to use this line of code to produce the effect you see now. I've been told this weapon may be a bit too OP, since people could just stand on the top platform and spam the shoot button. However, I think this problem won't be as big of a deal once I add more stages. The last main weapon I worked on as of the making of this video is the Sling Soak. One of the fastest weapons in the game mobility wise, with the drawback of having a below average jump. This also uses the same projectile as the bucket. Some people may call this lazy, but I call it a creative choice. That's mostly it for the main weapons at the moment, but that's only a quarter of the number of weapons I want to add to the game, as I plan on adding 20 unique weapons to splash out, along with 20 sub-weapons. Speaking of sub-weapons, I haven't been able to add as many sub-weapons due to them requiring a lot more work programming wise, but I have been able to add 2 new sub-weapons to splash out. The first new sub-weapon is the Bubble. This is the most simple sub-weapon to explain, but could also be the most broken sub-weapon in the game, as it gives you a free hit point. In a game where you die in one hit, it definitely sounds like it could be busted if not tuned properly. So to balance it out, I gave it a longer cooldown. The second sub-weapon I worked on is called the Super Geyser. When activated, you pull out this little happy dude over here. He's innocent at first, but once he hits the ground, he unleashes a vortex of water and pure chaos, with a fair and balanced hitbox. This is honestly my favorite looking sub-weapon in the game, even though it's not entirely what I envisioned. It still looks so cool. I really wanted to make more sub-weapons for the devlog, but honestly at that point, I was getting really burnt out from making weapons and I wanted to do something different. So I decided to take a break and overhaul the player menu. When I made the old menu, I was using Godot's button nodes. Normally that's fine when you're using a mouse, but once you start using a controller, things start to get more complicated. Especially when you start using 4 controllers. So after a week of good old trial and error and trying to convince myself that Godot's buttons will work, I decided to just scrap it all and use 2D arrays as buttons. Don't get me wrong, it still took me another week just to get my custom buttons to work, but the results are so much better than anything I could have done with Godot's default buttons. This is also when I started to learn how to properly use tweens, which help make the buttons pop when they're being selected. I also made some minor adjustments to the background, the most obvious change being that I added bubbles that float to the top. But overall, I'm really happy with how these menus turned out, and are definitely an improvement over what I had before, minus the occasional bugs that I need to iron out. That's pretty much all I have to show for now, but as I'm making this video, I'm adding even more weapons and sub-weapons to the game. And I may be also adding new stages as I'm writing the script. Wink wink. So, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you can be updated on the latest Splashout news. But before I go, I actually have a surprise for all the Godot users who watch my channel. About a week ago, my buddy Luke told me I could hit him up whenever I needed audio for Splashout, which I am extremely grateful for his generosity, by the way. But that also made me remember that Godot's current method of looping music is far from smooth. So for a day, I decided to take a break from Splashout to work on a piece of software that helped me with that. So let me introduce you to the Godot Audio Looper. This software not only allows you to create loop offsets for any OGG files you have, but also allows you to copy that loop offset to your clipboard so you can paste it into your main project. You can either drag and drop your OGG file or navigate to the file directly in the program. Also, don't ask me why the window is inside the program itself. That's just how Godot does it. The layout of the program itself was inspired by software I actually used to use back when I was a teenager to add in custom music for Smash Bros. Brawl. So the program should be pretty simple to use. Trust me, anyone who's modded Brawl knows how easy it is. I just wanted to create something as a way to thank you guys for all the support I've been getting recently. It really does mean a lot to me. And if you guys want to keep supporting me, I just created a Twitch channel where I plan on live streaming the development of Splashout. I think it'd be really cool to show some inspiring game developers how I make my own projects. And it's also a nice excuse for me to keep working on the game while I'm in college. Oh, yeah, remember when I said I had 4 months of summer vacation? For 4 months, I can stop worrying about college classes, stressing about my GPA, and contemplating on my life choices as a computer science major. Yeah, that script was written in May, and it's now almost September. Procrastination will always be my downfall. But anyway, if you don't like Twitch, just leaving a like and comment on the video is more than enough for me. And with that all being said, take care, comb your hair, and I'll see you guys later.
Yeah.
Where did you people come from?